I want to talk to you today about Aristotle's Eudaimonian Ethics. Aristotle's Eudaimonian Ethics is designed to produce the principle of happiness throughout the Greek society. Eudaimonia literally means the happy life. It also means the good life. It also means the life of moderation. It also means the life of the golden mean. Now, I'll explain these to you as I go along in this lecture. For Aristotle, it was important as a philosopher to try and set forth for the society of Greece a principle of living that would allow the society as a whole to move towards what he called eudaimonia, or the good life, or the happy life, the life of what he calls moral virtue. Moral virtue has to do with actions that are going to produce the desired consequence. Don't forget, Aristotle is a teleologist, and he's trying to produce the consequences of good behavior. He calls his good behavior, or the action, moral virtue. The word picture for eudaimonia is very simple, and I will begin to fill in the blanks for you. Aristotle says in order to achieve the good life or the happy life, we have to realize that reason, and reason alone, will help us develop the moral virtues or the moral activities that will lead us to what he calls the good life. He says, therefore, we should learn not to be led by feelings. He doesn't find fault with feelings. He just says that feelings will not lead us to the good life. They can compromise our decision-making ability. So through the use of reason, Aristotle says we will eventually end up at what he calls the good life. Now, how does this work? Aristotle says that reason will produce virtue. And virtue for Aristotle comes in what I will call two flavors. One is called intellectual, and the other is called moral. Now, intellectual virtue also comes in two flavors. First, he calls it in Greek Sophia. This will give us our choices of action. The second, another Greek word, phronesis, P-H-R-O-N-E-S-I-S, this will give us our choice. And finally, moral virtue will give us our desired action. Don't forget, for Aristotle, actions produce desired consequences. How do we go about choosing the desired action? Aristotle says by the employment of reason, we immediately put into play intellectual virtues, the first of which is called Sophia, which is our choices of action. The second is phronesis, which will reveal our choice of action. But to know the right thing and to choose the right thing to do will accomplish nothing until we put this into action. The action Aristotle calls moral virtue. And this is key into your understanding of eudaimonia, or Aristotle's theory of happiness. Reason is the key. Feelings, either too much or too little. He also calls too much excess, E-X-C-E-S-S, or defect. He also uses the word deficiency, will not produce moral virtue. Our feelings will lead us away from the desired action. However, once again, if we employ our reason, reason will produce two intellectual virtues, one called Sophia, which gives us our choices, the second called phronesis, which gives us our choice. Knowing the right things to do and choosing the right thing to do, however, requires us to put it into action. Once we take our choice and we put it into action, it becomes what Aristotle calls a moral virtue. So virtues are activities. Don't forget, actions produce the desired consequence. What's the desired consequence for Aristotle? Eudaimonia, the good life, the happy life, the life of the golden mean. And so, through the use of our intellect, being grounded in reason, we come up with our choices, we make our choice, but then we have to put it into action. When we put it into action, it becomes a moral virtue or a way of life, eudaimonia. Now, we can think of Sophia as our theoretical ethics, and we can think of our choice as applied ethics. Once again, knowing the right thing to do and choosing the right thing to do produces nothing until we take that choice and we put it into action. Moral virtue will produce the good life or the life of happiness for Aristotle. Now, if you copy this picture down, you fill in all the correct blanks as you go through the reading on Aristotle, and you go through the notes that I've written on Aristotle, the outline of the chapter for Aristotle's what we call Nicomachean Ethics or Eudaimonia. This picture, this word picture, should help you in your understanding of what Aristotle's trying to present to you, how he goes about deciding reason is important, the intellectual virtues, the moral virtues, and how moral virtue will produce the good life or the happy life.